Hey everyone, it's Justine, and today I created a birthday card here, and I wanted to show you how I made it. So I'm going to get started with a stitched circle die, some Inkadinkado masking paper, as well as a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of 80-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock. I'm going to put this masking paper, this is a paper that has a sticky backing on it, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. I cut it just slightly larger than my panel, about 1/8 of an inch, to make sure that it goes over all the edges of my card panel. I don't like to make it much bigger than that because then I find it's really hard to center. So I'm going to pop out this circle die here, and I can use this circle for another masking project later. I'm going to be using this mask here to put on top of my card panel so that I have a nice circle of paper showing, and that's all that's showing. So you can see that I went from the top to the bottom in order to get it perfectly centered. I'm now going to go ahead and slip this into my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm going to be using the Roses All Over background stamp from My Favorite Things. This is a stamp that's been in my collection for a very long time. Because it's a cling stamp, I have to remove the foam from my MISTI in order for there to be enough depth for me to pick up the stamp. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my first bit of stamping. I'm using some pink lemonade ink from My Favorite Things to go ahead and stamp all over the background of this card. Now it took me a second to get it to stick on here. Sometimes cling stamps will do that, especially if they're getting a little bit dirty. So you can run some warm water on the backing of them, or you can just flip them over like this and then push it down onto the glass. But overall, it does work really well. So I'm just going to ink up my entire stamp here using this pink lemonade. I'm only going to ink up the areas that I need because I know all I'm going to be doing is stamping in that circle area. So I'm just making sure to go around, and I'm really trying to push quite hard onto the edges of that circle in order to get it really down onto the edges of the circle on the paper. Because of the masking paper, you do have a little bit of a ledge, sort of, so you need to push down hard enough to get it in there. So I stamped it twice, and I did not take it out of my MISTI. That's really important because I decided to go back in and make the background a little bit more interesting. I went with some Versamark ink. I'm going to do some heat embossing here, and I'm going to stamp over my pink lemonade stamp again with some of this Wow Wanderlust embossing powder. It's a sparkly embossing powder inspired by Catherine Pooler. And I'm going to go ahead, stamp that Versamark on there to make sure it's extra sticky, and then I'm going to put some of this Wanderlust sparkle embossing powder on top. Now this doesn't really have a color, it's pretty much clear, but it does create a lot of glitz and glamour onto the back of the card. And I'll show you when I heat it all up what that looks like. But before we start heating, I'm actually going to remove the mask, just in case the mask actually, I'm not sure if you can heat emboss with the masking on here, what that will do, but I decided to not take any chances. So I'm just removing all the mask, and you can see I have the wonderful flowers as well as the circle area, and that's all I have on my background, and it creates a really elegant look, and that keeps that clean and simple style that I like so much. So I heat up my heat gun about 30 seconds prior to applying it to my paper, and I'm going to melt that embossing powder onto my card. So it's just creating a little bit of extra glitter onto the card. Okay, so I'm going to put that off to the side here, and I'm going to be using some of these essential sentiments from My Favorite Things. This is one of my favorite stamp sets of all time. I use it constantly on most of my cards, actually, when I need to add a little bit of a small sentiment. And they're actually these essential films or fish strips as well. So these coordinate with the essential sentiments or essential elements, I believe it's called. And so it's going to cut out each of these sayings in a perfect banner. And I really like that as well because I always have trouble getting my fishtail banners to line up exactly. So this is just going to save me all that work. So I grabbed a piece of black cardstock here, and I'm just going to attach my sentiment onto it, and I added my embossing bag so I was able to get any sort of stray powder away, and then I'm going to add the white embossing powder onto the top of my sentiment. So I'm grabbing my Nouveau spoon. This is an embossing powder spoon that I really, really like. I just purchased that, and because I keep my embossing powder, the main ones that I use in this Tupperware, it just provides a nice spoon to be able to take it out. So I'm using this die here, and I'm going to die cut the happy birthday, and I secured it with a piece of Post-it tape, and I'm able to attach this to my card. So I grabbed next a scrap piece of paper here. This is just a white sheet of paper. And I am going to use some of the area here to cut out the word mom. I'm going to make the birthday card for my mom. So I'm going to cut out 2 M's and the O. And this is a stitched alphabet die from My Favorite Things, which is one of my favorite alphabet dies, other than one other one that's a little bit bigger. But this is a really nice size for cards, I have to say. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop the dies out of the die cut here. I have the mom cut out and ready to go. Alright, so I'm just going to put all of my elements onto my card here. I'm going to add the MOM as well as the fishtail banner here in black with some 3D foam tape. So I'm using 3M foam tape, and this is perfect because you're able to just cut it down to the sizes you want without any hassle. It doesn't get stuck to your scissors or anything, and the backings are super easy to peel off, which is always a bonus in my books. This is the best foam tape I've ever used, and I use it all the time. I actually just had to go buy a new roll, which I have to say the last one lasted me about 1.5 years. So it's definitely an investment all at once if you want to buy one big roll of it, but it just lasts forever. It's great. So once I took all of those off, I was able to attach them. So I stuck the happy birthday here up at the top and the mom underneath, just using the black strip there as a guide to keep everything straight. And that is the end of my very clean and simple card. I just wanted to show you what it looks like as well as the shine onto the card itself. But before that, I just used some blocks to help me secure everything on it and make sure everything was nice and straight and secure onto the card. Sometimes adding that extra weight really helps. So there is the final result of my card. It's so much shinier in person. I wish you could see it. And I hope you enjoyed this card tutorial today. If you're interested in subscribing to my channel, you can go ahead and click on my face there, or you can go ahead and check out one of the suggested videos. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have an awesome day.